The evidence seems to indicate that you're watching Dolly Vision.
Topping up, Dolly Vision streaming real. True crime scene blast feel so unreal. YouTube madness like share, subscribe. Chats on fire, burning the world's fire. Where's the baby missing shadows crawl? People whisper footsteps down the hall. Fingerprints of the dead, cold as stone. He's got the scoop, best around town known. Dolly Vision headlines, King of Peace. Truth unravels, crackling through the heat. Lost soul shining, echoes in the night. Rock the truth while live on air light. Topping up, Dolly Vision streaming real. True crime scene blast feel so unreal. YouTube madness like share, subscribe. Chats on fire, burning the world's fire. Where's the baby missing shadows crawl? People whisper footsteps down the hall. Fingerprints of the dead, cold as stone. He's got the scoop, best around town known. Dolly Vision headlines, King of Peace. Truth unravels, crackling through the heat. Lost soul shining, echoes in the night. Rock the truth while live on air light.
What is up, YouTube? It is Dolly back in the house again tonight. And tonight we are talking about John Paul Miller being indicted with the death, well, dealing with the death of his wife, Mica Miller. Okay. And we're going to get into all the crazy details of that case just here in a few minutes. But I am going to need a favor from you first. I need you to leave your DNA all over that like button just in case you go missing and we got to come find you. Dolly's going to need your DNA. Leave it all over the like button along with your fingerprints. And if you're brand new here and you haven't subbed up yet, make sure you sub up the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and of course, feel free to share my ugly face everywhere. Okay, now a lot of people have been going crazy about this pastor from South Carolina who allegedly has been indicted for cyber stalking his ex-wife that she tragically took her own life. Now you're thinking, well, Dolly, she did it to herself. Not quite. Not quite. It appears that this man had harassed this woman so bad that it drove her slam to the edge. And of course, over the edge. And I don't mean literally. I mean just in her mind, she couldn't take anymore. She actually shot herself. But we're going to get into the details, the timeline of this case, and what's going on from a legal standpoint right now. He has been indicted. He does have court coming up and in January, and he has two charges which carry a maximum of 7 years. And I mean maximum of 7 years in prison, five up to 5 years for I can't even talk tonight. Cyber stalking, okay, and 2 years for lying to authorities about some of the details he told them leading up, well, following after she had took her life. He had lied to the authorities. So, the question tonight that I'm going to ask everybody, can somebody cause you to take your own well-being? And should they be held responsible for that if they do. And yes, for people out there asking, is he a pastor? Yes, he is a pastor in South Carolina. Really big case that had been blowing up down there. And he's just recently been indicted for these charges. And like I said, he goes to court in January. John Paul Miller and Mica Miller married in 2017. He started cyber stalking her in November of 2022. Okay. So this is when well, they're saying the physical abuse was going on during the relationship. He's accused of physical abuse, but he hasn't been charged of any physical abuse. But he started basically cyber stalking her, harassing her, and destroying her property in 2022. She unalived herself April 27th, 2024. Right before she did, and this is crazy, we're going to listen to the 911 call tonight. She calls 911 and tells the dispatch that she has her location on and that she is in the Lumber River State Park and that she plans on taking her own life. Okay, it's really hard to listen to, so trigger warnings on that one tonight. John Paul Miller was questioned after she was found, October of 2024. He denied any cyber stalking and harassing of this victim. Now, it later come to find out he had called this woman more than 50 times in one day. He was posting nude images of her. Well, posted a nude image of her online. And he had also went out and he bought something off the internet to deflate her tires. So later, she comes out and she finds her tires are deflated and there's a device in it. And they find out that this is the device to deflate tires. And while they were searching the vehicle, they found a GPS tracking unit on this vehicle. He also hired a private eye to basically stalk and follow his ex to see if she was cheating. Okay. Now, this is a pastor from a pretty decent sized church in South Carolina. He has now been indicted, federal charges. His court date is January 12th, 2026. He posted her nude pictures, tracked her vehicle, called her more than 50 times in a day. Okay. Um, he deflated the tires, hired the PI. We know all this. Um, so in 2023, she filed for divorce. Okay. So even though they were going through this divorce, he still wanted to basically stalk this woman. Okay. And listening to the phone call, I'm gonna tell you now, we're gonna go over the timeline of everything first. Then we're gonna get to the 911 call. Then we're gonna get to what is going on legally right now as we speak. Now, a lot of people are saying that he should be facing more time than he is for these crimes because he caused her to do this, right? He drove her to the edge and she left this world. And in the 911 call, she basically told the 911 operator, "Hey, I'm at this state park. I turned on my location," because she wasn't quite sure exactly where she was at. And she told the 911 operator, "The only reason I'm calling is because I want my family to be able to find my body." So later on, come to find out, a fisherman was out there fishing and he heard what he thought was someone crying. Then later on, he heard a gunshot. Shortly after that, he finds a body in the water, and of course, on the bank was a wallet with Mica Miller's ID in that wallet. Now, this man is not facing any type of charges that deal with her death. At some point, I would believe this would be some type of manslaughter because you have caused this lady to hurt herself, right? Men, and in this whole time, he knew she was going through some mental health problems. She had other mental health problems. But she had called the police multiple times on John Paul. And one of these things is, a lot of people feel like when they're in this situation that nobody's going to believe them. Okay. So I feel like that Mica Miller felt like nobody would believe her because the man that was doing this to her was a pastor of a big church in South Carolina. So I just feel like she felt like she was trapped and nobody was going to believe her. And he was messing with her mental health, even knowing she had mental health problems, and caused her to take her life. And the question tonight I'm asking you guys, should this man be charged with more than what he's charged with? And can someone cause you to do these types of things? Or the questions when I open the phone lines in just a little bit that I want to ask you guys, because some people would say, well, he didn't kill her. What's the big deal? You can't control what somebody else does. And, there's situations that we talked about last night with AI encouraging someone to hurt themselves, right? And that's, you know, a, a computer. But when there's somebody else that's saying, yeah, you're worthless, or telling you you're worthless, telling you're a piece of shit, telling you ain't never going to be nothing, is that a reason to hold this person responsible for death? Now, the cyber stalking, of course, we know he's guilty of. They have evidence that point towards he's guilty of that. Of course, hiring the PI, lying to the authorities, carry 2 years. We pretty much know he's guilty of that. But right there, that's only a max of 7 years. Is that justice for Mica Miller? I don't believe so. So let's pull up this video. I just want to give you a timeline of this case, just in case you're not familiar with it and you're brand new to this case. I want to give you a timeline of kind of what happened. I want you to hear the 911 call, and I want you to see what they have against them in court right now.
Mica Miller and her husband, John Paul Miller, a pastor from Solid Rock Church, filed for divorce. They were married back in 2017. Mica's friend said she had led the women's ministry and worship team at the same church. Thursday, February 8th, 2024, Mica's involuntarily hospitalized for 48 hours. Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, Mica calls police and alleges her ex-husband stole her car while she was hospitalized. She tells the officer she has known her husband since she was 10 years old and that he, quote, groomed her, end quote, while she worked for him at Solid Rock Church until they were wed in 2017. John Paul tells the cops his wife suffers from, quote, episodes, end quote. Since the car is marital property, no charges were filed. Monday, March 11, 2024, 2 incidents are filed with authorities naming Mica as a victim. She calls the police after finding her tire slashed with a piece of metal. It was later identified as a tire deflation device available for purchase online. Mechanics then find a GPS device attached to her car. Wednesday, March 13, 2024. Someone at Solid Rock Church files a police report alleging Mica transferred donation funds from the church's Zelle and Cash App accounts to her personal account. Mica leaves her apartment in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, shortly after noon and heads to a pawn shop to buy a gun. 12:34 p.m. Mica leaves the pawn shop and travels on a highway, stopping at a gas station to buy gas and a drink. She heads toward North Carolina. 2:54 p.m. After about an hour and a half, Mica calls 911 from a park over the state line about 33 miles away from the gas station and says she plans to end her own life.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Before she said that, though, she did say she didn't know exactly where she was at. She didn't know exactly what state park she was at, because when she called the police, she asked the police, hey, can you trace this call? And they said, hold on, give us a minute, right? Which I found weird, because they didn't ask her what they were tracing the call for. And then she goes into, describing where she's at. And she basically tells the 911 operator that what you just heard, that she's going to, take her own life and that she just wants her kids to know where she's at. And the 911 operator, oh my God, says, okay, can you please hold on? Not, don't do that. We got somebody on the way. She didn't try to counsel Mica Miller at all, the 911 call operator. She just said, okay, could you hold on for a minute? So she put a woman that was threatening to hurt herself on hold, and the phone was disconnected. And then I believe shortly after, Micah walked to the edge of the water bank and took her own life. Now, when I heard this 911 call, my mind was blown, right? I was like, what the hell? This woman had no compassion, right? The 911 operator. And I was thinking, this is crazy because listen, she had called the police prior to this and said that she was thinking about hurting herself, but nobody got her the help that she needed, right? Because she was, not only was she going through mental health problems, she was going through the harassment and the stalking and the being followed. And I think that exasperated more of her mental health issue and maybe the cause of why she did what she did. I mean, we'll never really know because we're not in the mind of Mica Miller. But if you ask me what caused this woman's death, I would say this sorry ass pastor, this person that's supposed to be a man of God, and he's really just a big old piece of shit, right? If you ask me. Now, of course, just like everybody, a lot of people in here, we got a lot of Christian folks that watch Dolly Vision. I believe Jesus is my Lord and Savior, but there's a lot of people out here that use God to cover up their dirty, underhanded, nasty shit that they do. Okay. Some of these are the people that give Christian people a really, really bad name. Okay. You're thieving, lying, manipulating, jet flying, Kenneth Copeland's, Joel Osteen's, your John Paul Millers, and the list goes on and on and on of these people that are out here just doing horrible things. But let me give my warnings before we get too far into this, because I'm going to be talking about some pretty powerful people tonight. So I want to make sure I legally try to protect myself the best that I can. Dolly Vision is for entertainment purposes only. We talk news, rumors, gossip, speculation, theories, mixed with a little bit of comedy and a whole lot of chaos. Don't take nothing here as a fact. Completely satire. Just my opinion, people. The callers tonight, opinions or panel guest opinions are theirs and theirs alone, not to reflect on the Dolly. Everyone, and I mean even John Paul Miller, innocent to proving guilty. And the biggest one of them all, guys, is do not whatsoever try to be Dolly at home. So, like I said, this is a person I believe that has drove this lady to the edge. And trust me, some of y'all out here in the chat, y'all drive me crazy, but just not that crazy, okay? Just not that crazy. When y'all don't be liking the video, and I got to tell you 1,000 times, you're pushing me closer and closer to the edge of homelessness, all right? So we don't need that. We can avoid that. You can save a life tonight by just simply liking the video. Simply just liking the video. There's only 500 of you guys here with me. So I just want to first off tell you guys, thank you for being here. Happy holidays. It is good to see each and every one of you. All right, let's get back to this story because this is a sad one.
3:03 p.m. Deputies with the sheriff's office head to Lumber River State Park, contact the park rangers, and begin a search within 30 minutes. Specialized units searching for Mica from the air are deployed. Struggles he thought Mica had with mental health.
So over the years since we've been married, some people struggle with high blood pressure, some struggle with diabetes, or struggle with mental health. And whenever she stayed on her lithium, things were amazing. She'd come off sometimes and things would be a little unusual. Per her doctors, they told her even just recently they had written that she was homicidal, suicidal. And she had struggled with suicide before. And each time, helped her through it, took her to her doctor, and we got through it, and everything was fine. And so this past time was still a shock, an incredible shock.
Sunday, May 5th, 2024. Friends and family rally outside Solid Rock Church. Some in Mica's family dispute the manner of death described by her estranged husband.
This has to be at least looked into deeply. There's got to be some accountability here because, it's a tragic life was lost, and it's not just as simple as somebody had some mental issues.
A memorial service honoring her life followed the rally. Monday, May 6, 2024. The medical examiner releases Mica's cause of death. They conclude that she died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mica's family meets with deputies about the investigation. John Paul asked the sheriff's office to meet with him in South Carolina. The investigation team said they did not plan to cross the state lines. Wednesday.
Now, somebody asked, how was she found in the water? And the gun was also retrieved out of the water. Well, what it looks like maybe possibly is we only got 300 likes on this video. Y'all doing me dirty. I opened it up to everybody. I took it off of members. So if you're just coming in, make sure you like the video. I'm thinking she walked out into the water a little bit and possibly pulled the trigger. Okay. Now, some people believe she didn't unalive herself at all, that she may have been murdered. But it sounds like she was real calm when she made the 911 call. We are going to listen to the 911 call in just a few minutes. She seemed like she was calm through a lot of this. And I mean, I don't exactly know. Was there a hitman? Is it possible? Maybe, right? But it appears this is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Even though, if you were standing on the edge of a building and somebody was screaming at you, jump, and you jumped, should they be held responsible? I believe that is exactly what he did in a different kind of way. She was on the edge and he just kept pushing her and pushing her and pushing her until basically she fell off the edge. And the question tonight is exactly this. Should this person be held responsible? Now, myself, I believe you should. Miss Nutty Nut, in my opinion, this guy was gaslighting the next wife too, if he gets away with this. Yes, Miss Nutty Nut. And thank you, Miss Nutty Nut. And also, we have a goal. If we hit $10 super chats, I am giving this Justice for Summer Wells hat on that I'm wearing, and I'm going to sign it and ship it to you. Okay, so we're going to pick one winner for this hat tonight if we hit our $10 super chat goal. Okay, if not, I'm keeping it because it looks fresh. It looks pretty fly on me. You know what I'm saying? Pink is the new black. It goes good with black, don't it? It goes pretty damn good together. But thank you, and thank you for your donation. Welcome to the Blessed Express. You ain't blessed unless you on the express. Now listen, I ain't no pastor, right? You don't got to give me nothing. I love you all the same. All right. Anyway, let's keep it going.
May 8th, 2024. Public records requested by WPDE are released, detailing the events leading up to Mica's suicide.
Okay. So basically, those statements that were there, them were statements from his lawyer saying that, her own mental health problems caused her to do what was done, that it's not the pastor's fault. And a lot of these things being said about John Paul Miller are fabricated and are lies. All right. Now, let me get this 911 call pulled up for you guys real fast. Well, as fast as I can. Here we go. This is the audio from the 911 call.
The wife of a preacher was found dead from a gunshot wound. Tonight, we listen to the dramatic 911 call she made. That's Mica Miller on stage in church and full of life. Mica Miller, 30 years old. And this story, there's a lot of mystery surrounding it and some things that don't make a lot of sense. But she was 30 years old, the wife of a pastor, and she died on April 27th of this year from a gunshot wound. I want to read from her obituary. Mica was energetic, affirming, adventurous, faithful, loving, giving, forgiving, talented, joyous, creative, assertive, bold, determined, or authoritative, passionate, hardworking, a risk taker, and so much more. She helped Pastor JP with the church in every way. Mica was the worship leader, graphics designer, youth leader, women's ministry leader, and pastor's assistant. And she did all of this with the utmost integrity and faithfulness. Mica made the greatest of efforts to always be the best wife she could be.
She alleged that he started grooming her at 10 years old. Okay. Mab, me and you think the same way. Look, Mab said, groomed since 10, remind of SS, right? Yes, like that's the bad thing is, yeah, this lady was in charge of everything. He had his eyes on this person since she was a kid. And this is just horrible, horrible situation. So I mean, this man, he exhibited predatory behavior. He even in the split up, he had a PI watching her. He was tracking her, blowing her phone up. And I would say he's responsible for this lady's death.
And she was the wife of the pastor,
in my opinion,
John Paul Miller. They had been friends since 2009. They got married in 2017, but they were in the process of separating when she died. She had served him with divorce papers just days earlier. And as a result of all of this, John Paul, the pastor, has been receiving a lot of backlashes and accusations regarding her death. But take a look. This is from the Robeson County Sheriff's Office, May 7th press release. Unfortunately, rumors and conspiracy theories were spreading quickly and assumptions were being made. However, in the end, we must make decisions based on the facts and evidence that has been gathered. In the end, sadly, a tragic decision was made by Mica that ended her life. So we've got some images, some of the last images of Mica Miller from the day of her death. 11:38, she's caught on a Ring camera leaving her home. 12:13, she's in a pawn shop purchasing a firearm and ammunition. 1:27, she's spotted filling up at a gas station. 2:54, she calls 911 and informs them she's about to take her own life. I'm going to play that call for you right now. It's not easy to listen to, but it's an important part of what happened here, and her family is very, very skeptical.
Okay, guys, this is where the trigger warning comes in. So if you don't want to hear this call, I suggest you tune out. It's very short. It's only about less than a minute long. It is very hard to listen to, knowing the outcome of what happened shortly after this phone call. But I just want to give everybody some trigger warnings just in case you're easily upset, because it was even hard for me to listen to, and I've heard some pretty bad things. It's not graphic. It's not none of that. It's just we know what happened to her, and to hear her say this so calmly, it's heartbreaking, is what it is. All right, but I just want to let y'all know before you tune in and you're with the kids, and the kids should be in bed by now. It's almost midnight on the East Coast, but you may be in California time, or somewhere watching abroad. I just want to let you know that it gets a little sensitive subject matter here. All right, adults only.
About her taking her own life. Let's listen to that call.
Robeson County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
Hi, are you able to trace the location of my phone?
Let me see. You don't know where you're at?
In National Park.
Where's the park located at?
In Fair Bluff.
Let's see.
I have my location on, I think, on my phone. Find my phone is on. I just did my my location.
Okay, I'm showing. Hold on 1 second. I don't think you are in Robeson County. At the Lumber River State Park.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay.
Now look how long they've been on the phone, and this woman hasn't asked her what's wrong yet. She called 911. Usually the first thing, what's your emergency, right? Ain't that what they say? What's your emergency? And then she gets into this whole trying to find where she's at for 5 minutes, and then she finally gets to what's going on. And then you ain't gonna believe what she says after she tells her. Just listen to this.
Tell me what's happened.
I'm about to kill myself, and I just want my family to know where to find me.
Okay, ma'am. Just listen to what I'm saying, okay? Let me make sure I got the exact location where you're at, okay? Just 1 minute.
The lady literally tells her she's about to take her own life, and she puts the woman on hold. Now tell me this 911 operator does not need to be fired. And then the call basically disconnects. 911 tries to call her back, and there's no answer. Because at this point, she just wanted people to know where she was at. So she knew the authorities were coming. So I'm thinking shortly after this 911 call, she got out the vehicle, walked down to the riverbank, walked out into the water, and did the unthinkable. And listen, anybody out there that's going through depression, I want to tell you this: there's always life comes with ups and downs. When you hit the bottom and you think, that's it. No, life it goes back up again. Things get better. And there's people out there, there's a hotline that you can call. There's people that will walk you through this. They're way better equipped to deal with, these types of problems than myself. But there is a 1-800 number to reach out to get help if you're ever in a situation like this. But if you are going through something, please reach out and tell somebody before it ever gets to a point like this. And trust me, there you go. There's the helpline. 1-800-622-HELP is the number. Thank you. Thank you, Sage. You were on top of that. And of course, reach out for some help. Don't think you're alone in this world, because you're really not. There's people that really care. And what I think Mica, if she could have stayed around, or if she's looking down, she knows there's a lot of people out here that cared about her now, right? But that's a little late. That's a little late. So, and I always tell people around this time of year, a lot of people go through depression because of Christmas. Maybe they're alone, or they can't provide what they think they should be providing for people, right? And really, the only thing you need to give people at Christmas is really love. But some people think it's about all these gifts, and that puts a lot of pressure on people financially. And sometimes that financial situation causes depression. And at this time of the year, it's the highest time of the year for people to hurt themselves. So, and it's not always the ones that are crying out for help. Sometimes it's the ones that ain't saying nothing, the ones that smile at you when they see you. You never know what's going on behind a smile. Okay. There may be some other things going on. So just check up with your loved ones and see how they're doing. Ask people, hey man, how you feeling? How you been? Is everything good with you? Are you going through anything? If you are, I'm here for you. Let people know. Because listen, time they walk out in that water and do what she done, it's too late to say that. And I know everybody would be there for their loved ones and their friends if they just knew. But you may not know if you don't ask. Okay?
It's sad. It's tragic. But the family is still skeptical about all of this, and they think there's more to the story. I want you to take a look on the screen, though. John Paul Miller, her husband, released a statement through his attorney and said, it has been conclusively determined that Ms. Miller's death was the result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. This finding completely exonerates Pastor Miller of any wrongdoing. These baseless claims and false reporting have caused immense distress and harm to Pastor Miller and his family and needs to stop immediately. I want to bring in our think tank, Daryl Cohen, Meg Strickler, Josh Schiffer. A tough story, but what's happening is that.
Okay, Damien's mom, thank you for being here. We're glad we could bless you on our Christmas wish stuff. Hopefully everything has came in. If not, I'm hoping everything will be there by Christmas, that you can give your son Damien, our little horror movie fan. So I hope y'all have a blessed Christmas this year, and it's good to see you.
The family is upset. They think there's more to the story. And then you've got this firestorm that's happening on social media that has picked this up as well. And a lot of people pointing the finger at the pastor, but obviously law enforcement seemingly has come to their conclusion here based upon the evidence.
Based on what we have seen and heard, she called saying, I'm going to kill myself. It's not what you want to hear. The family is having to come together to understand and deal with this grief. So they're looking for a way to say it wasn't her. Sure, there's more to it. Maybe because of the divorce, maybe there was somebody involved with her, maybe not. But either way, sadly, these are some of the tragedies that unfold throughout this country from time to time, much too often. It seems to me, based on the evidence, she was seen purchasing a gun.
And Jenna B, I got your Christmas card today. Thank you for the Christmas card. That was awesome of you. And somebody else sent me some Razzle candy and a gift card. I don't have it available to know who sent it to me right this second. But I've seen it. I haven't had a chance to really open it yet. So thank you for you guys that have been sending me things. That is super cool of you. And like I said, thank you for thinking about us, Jennifer B. That was sweet. And Dr. Latina, thank you for the scarf.
Called, spent a lot of time with 911.
Right.
And she was found where she said she was found. This is not her husband. Maybe he beat her up emotionally, maybe not, but physically she did this to herself.
I'm going to disagree with Daryl. I mean, if I was the family, if their intuition is saying, we don't think this is what happened, why can't they go ahead and work to investigate more deeply? We have certainly heard about botched investigations in the past. I'm not implying that's what happens here, but I would go to the ends of the earth to find out.
Well, let me ask you this.
About that.
Is there something that they, like, what is their approach to this if law enforcement is saying,
I would
listen,
hire Charles Milstat right off the bat, and I would get cell phone data. That would be my first thing to do. And I'm giving him a shout out to Charles, but somebody like that a private person could go out and look at the cell phone data, look at the normally new cars you can get like their black box and see where it's gone. We have the flock camera. That's a government camera. Where's all the rest of them?
Yeah, and unfortunately, doing some of this crisis work, it's what we're called to do when we're lawyers. And when you're dealing with a family who's going to doubt the official line of law enforcement, who's going to call into question the truth that the decedent widower is saying, listen, everybody, leave me alone. This is a horrible tragedy. If I'm representing that family looking for the truth, getting that investigation started has to happen immediately. You've got electronic information that can disappear very quickly, but you want to take forward with that investigation in a tasteful manner.
How do you get your hands on this stuff? Do you have to? Can you subpoena without a lawsuit, without a cause of action going on?
Why would you do it? Why don't you just bring it to an end? I want a lot of things. But that doesn't mean that the logic and the facts support it.
But maybe
and
there's
the family
something we
needs
don't
to
know yet.
What do you know? What is it you need to know?
Maybe he was an abusive person, and
Okay,
maybe they saw that, and then when they heard her voice, they know her voice. Maybe they heard something that none of us would have heard.
Well, he had been accused of abuse, right? He just wasn't charged with any kind of abuse during their relationship. Now, there's a lot of women that'll tell you they've been in relationships and been abused for years and never reported it to the police. Just because you don't report it don't mean it's not happening. And, you know, I think there may have been some abuse going on. Listen to this. Look at his actions after the breakup, the stalking, the cyber stalking, the destroying her property, trying to, you know, to wreck her life. Them are actions that also, I would say, that an abusive person would do. You know, somebody's not abusive, they're not going to do all these things. These are actions of an abusive person. And you know, and she's telling the truth. She was groomed by this man since she was 10 years old. And then when she was old enough, then he started abusing her. And then he started mentally torturing her and pushed her right over the edge of a cliff. And he's getting 7 years, and it's a piece of shit liar as he takes money from the church, right? Being a good guy, a good pastor. And I just, some of these people that are in these powerful positions as a spiritual advisor, leader, they should be held even more accountable, right? They should be held even more accountable than a regular person, because they're given this voice. They're given this sort of power over people, okay? People look up to these people. And then you got a man like this that is doing this behind the scenes, but when the lights hit, he's a man of God. That ain't how it works. That is not how it works. And there should be even more responsibility for these preachers, these pastors, these priests, and all these that commit these crimes. And then they go, "Oh, I'm a good guy. I love Jesus." Get the hell out of here.
Through the line.
She bought a gun. She called and said she's going to kill herself. What more do
Nothing
you
is
need?
always as it is.
Hold it right there. We're going to do some more on this up next.
State investigators are saying the evidence is consistent with suicide, and now the feds are taking a look at the case. We'll break it down.
Well, this is a little bit older version of court TV. Now, the state didn't do anything. South Carolina didn't do nothing for Mica Miller. 911 caller basically failed her. That 911 caller should immediately started trying to talk her off the ledge, okay? Which there's no ledge involved. I'm just using that as a metaphor, okay? Because everybody kind of knows what that means, right? She should have immediately been going, "Ma'am, listen, don't do that. We got help on the way. There's people that love you. There's people that care about you." She put her on hold, right? So, I mean, that 911 caller basically has to live with that she failed this woman. She was the worst 911 operator I think I ever heard in my life. The system failed Mica Miller, right? When she was reaching out for help, telling people she was going through this. She reached out to the police and told the police before she was thinking about hurting herself. Instead of sending her and putting her on a hold and sending her to the hospital and getting her back on her medicines or whatever needed to be done, they failed her. So she wasn't just, she was failed by basically everybody around her. Okay? Her family didn't know, but everybody else that did know that this woman was going through these things, they failed her. They absolutely dropped the ball. Not only do I think that the family needs to put a wrongful death lawsuit against the state because she reached out for help to 911, right? And she didn't get that help. She reached out that day for help and she didn't get the help then, right? So I'm thinking this is horrible. And it's horrible for the family to see that the one person that could have probably maybe had a chance to talk this woman off the ledge put her on hold. Wasn't even important enough to go, hey, don't do this. Listen, you're loved, you're cared about, your family will be sad. Listen, give us a minute. We're going to get there. We'll help you. Never told her any of those things. This is a sad situation. And like I said, the state, they didn't charge John Paul Miller with nothing. The feds had to come in and they had to indict him on these charges. And like I said, he's only been indicted on cyber stalking, which we know he did, right? He's only been lying to the authorities. At the max, he faces a $250,000 fine. Let's be honest. He's going to use church money to pay that fine. His followers will pay that $250,000. It'll never come out of his pocket. Non-taxable money. That's why a lot of these people go into preaching, is because they can preach and they can make this money and they don't have to pay any taxes on it. None. When you donate to the church and to a preacher, hopefully you're donating to a real person of God and somebody that deserves your tithes. But there's a lot of people out here that don't. Like when I use people like this as, when Hurricane Katrina came through and people wouldn't open their doors to the churches for homeless people. Didn't want them dirtying up their church. That drive Ferraris and walk by and wouldn't spit on a homeless person. Got 3 or 4 private jets. Now, I think if you're a man of God, of course, God's going to want his people taken care of. But I think there's a limit. There should be a cap. Jesus, I think you need to put a cap on some of these people, because then you see when people are really greedy. And if there is a hell in this world, these people that have took money under God's name like this, I hope you're burning first. Like when I'm in line, I'm gonna be like, listen, you got about 7,000 more preachers before you even get to me. Okay, like I'm in the back. I'm way back here. Your asses better be up there in the front, because if you ain't, something's wrong with the system. That's how I see it. Like, these dudes are worse. They should burn before devil worshippers burn. Okay? Like, listen, we get to hell, devil worshippers over here. What do they call it? Prophet preaching. Y'all are to the front of the line. Okay? All these prophet preachers preaching for profit, right to the front. Okay? Right to the front. We're going to burn you first. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll get to everybody else later. All right, but you got to go. You're heating hell, right? You the firewood. We chucking preachers in first. Right? Them are the first ones going to burn. I guarantee you this. You get to heaven, people, there ain't going to be too many preachers there. I can promise you that. Okay, there ain't going to be too many preachers there. You be like, where's the church at? Be like, oh, we didn't have one good preacher. Jesus is preaching tonight. Okay, he's doing it personally. He's working double duties. Okay, we didn't have any good preachers. We had to burn them all. Okay, it's terrible. It's terrible. And then we won't know till we get there. Okay, we won't know till we get there.
All
of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime.
Oh yeah, it's on.
After his wife's death. It's April 21st. Again, a lot of people looking at him, but not local investigators. They've come to their conclusion about what.
Thank you, Dolly, for giving my daughter a great Christmas, Nicole. Not a problem, Nicole. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you guys have a blessed and Merry Christmas. All right. Now, listen, I know I'm picking on the preachers a little bit tonight. Not all preachers are bad. There are some good people out there. There's still good preachers in this world that do it for the right reasons. So just, watch out for a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sheep's clothing.
Happened in this case. Now, we've also heard that the feds are taking a look at this, and we have a statement from the FBI to Court TV regarding Mica's investigation. The Robeson County Sheriff's Office has been in contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Federal Bureau of Investigation in South Carolina since the early stages of the Mica Miller investigation. Based on the information gathered during the investigation and jurisdiction reasons, the Sheriff's Office has requested the assistance of both agencies. No other information will be released at this time. Now, something else that is happening on TikTok, on the Justice for Mica account, they posted some text messages, and these text messages are apparently, allegedly, from when Mica is alive, and it's the pastor Miller texting the family, "I'm on my way to your house. Be there, 12:55. Then the family responds, "We don't want any drama here." That was the pretense of Mica coming for a visit, that it is just Mica alone. The pastor, 3 hours away. The family, "Matthew will not let you inside. We aren't doing that tonight." The pastor, "That's fine. You can call the cops." The family, "Our dog can barely handle visitors as it is, let alone any drama." The pastor, "I'm armed. I'm ready."
There you go.
Oh my God. See, stuff like that. Not, harassing her, harassing the family. I think there should be a bigger punishment for this man than 7 years and a $250,000 fine. And that's the max, 7 years.
Now, more text messages from the pastor. All of this started because of one bad decision a month ago in Colombia. If I could turn back time, I would. We had the greatest marriage in the world up until that one wrong choice. More from the pastor. "My blood is on you, and my kids will know I couldn't take it without you. All you had to do was come home to me, but you wouldn't. I'm done." Now, what was that one wrong choice?
What do y'all think that choice was? Cheating?
Take a look. This is from the Robeson County Sheriff's Office, from their press release. "This information led to investigators confirming the whereabouts of Miller and a female that he is allegedly romantically involved with. Investigators were able to confirm that both individuals were not in North Carolina on the night before and the day of Mica's death."
So he was cheating.
Apparently the pastor was seeing another woman. They were involved, but investigators have taken a look at this now, and they have said, no, they weren't there.
Let's ask Daryl these questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, they wasn't there at Mica's death, but he pushed her over the edge. He took a mental woman and tortured her while he was really messing with somebody else. So this is one of those situations where it's okay for him to do it. It's okay for him to cheat, have affairs, but it's not okay for her to do anything, right? While he's cheating, he's worried about what she's doing. He's tracking her. He got a private investigator following her, right? We got to remember, he hired a private investigator to follow this woman around. So he didn't want her cheating or doing anything, but he was okay himself with doing whatever he did. Now, if that ain't a man of God, I don't know what is. All right. That is horrible. That is absolutely horrible. And he still has people in the church that support him and believe him because they've given him this authority. He's he's not far from a cult leader. Okay, he's not far from a David Koresh to me. Like when I see it, I'm like, oh, this is culty AF. Okay, this is what this is. This is some old drink the Kool-Aid type stuff. And you have all these people protesting the church while you got all these people coming to church, and he's trying to put people in jail that get on the property and all these things. While he still goes in there and preaches the word of God like he's a man of God. Once you do something like this, like when he gets convicted, he should never be able to preach again. It should be laws. When you convicted of a crime, you cannot be a preacher. You can't do it. Listen, I've had my own run-ins with bad preachers. Okay, I was doing community service at a church. I got in some trouble. I had to do some community service, and the guy that was a preacher had been charged with crimes against kids. When he got out of prison, he became a preacher. All right. Just happened when I had to do my community service, I had to do it at that church. Now, you see tonight I have a Jesus shirt on, right? It says, Jesus loves you, but loves me more. Okay. That's what my shirt says if you can't read it because it's black on black, right? But it says, Jesus loves you, but loves me more. Okay. A lot of times I don't think about what shirts I put on. And for anybody that's been around my channel for a long time, y'all would know that I used to be a singer of a metal band. And I listen to a lot of metal music, which some people say that's Satan, that's the devil's music. I never looked at it like that. It's just all entertainment to me. Okay. It's just all entertainment to me. And one morning I had to be at community service at 7 a.m. at this church that's ran by a convicted sex offender. This is the pastor. So at the time I didn't know that. I didn't know that I had later on, I checked into him after me and this man had an altercation. So I show up 7 o'clock in the morning, one eye still closed, some eye crust in the other eye. And I had threw on a t-shirt because it was summertime and it was a Slayer t-shirt, the band Slayer. For anybody that's familiar with metal music, Slayer is not the most Jesus appropriate band. Okay. But I had a whole closet full of like band shirts, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, just different shirts. I didn't pay it much mind. I just threw on a t-shirt. And all of a sudden, this big, fat, nasty ass Stacy Wander looking dude runs out screaming, right? Screaming, you're a devil worshiper, right? And I'm trying to wake up, you know what I'm saying? I'm wiping the coals out my eye. And I'm like, who is this dude screaming at me? Right? Because I had never met the preacher. Right? So I'd never met the preacher. He's coming out screaming, you're a devil worshiper. You're a devil worshiper. And I looked at the guy real politely and said, hey, man, I don't worship the devil. I think you got something wrong. He goes, well, your shirt does. Your shirt. Your devil worshiping shirt. Right? That's what he says. And you know me, I'm just a smart ass. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell, right? Because it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. I look at this guy. I ain't even really think about it, what I said to him. But I look back at him and said, man, when I take this shirt off at night, it don't worship the devil. And then he starts screaming, get off my property. Get off my property. I'm calling your probation officer, right? And I'm not on probation. I just got community service. But I do have this lady that runs the community service place that assigned my community service. And she is a probation officer, but I'm not on probation. Okay. And he's like, I'm going to call you a probation officer. I'm going to call you a probation officer and make sure you go back to prison. And I'm thinking to this dude, man, I ain't never been to prison. I ain't never been to prison. And I don't worship the fucking devil. Okay. I don't worship the devil. So basically, he calls in to the lady that gave me my community service, and she calls me up to the office and I got to go meet with this lady, and she's this big black woman that is a correctional. What is she? She's like a state trooper or something. But on her downtime, she does the community service. She gives people community service. That's what she does, right? But she's a state police officer, right? And so, I walk in this little office, and she's like, "You showed up at that church with a Satan shirt on," right? This woman has no clue to who Slayer is, right? She said, "You showed up at that church with a Satan shirt on," right? And I was like, "No, I wasn't wearing a Satan shirt. I was like, I was wearing a Slayer shirt. It only said Slayer on it. It didn't have no images. It didn't have anything on the shirt. It just said Slayer in red." And she was like, "Well, let me tell you this." She's like, "You go back to that church with a devil worshiping shirt on again. I'm going to give you 50 more hours of community service." And I told the lady, I said, "You can't do that. You ain't the judge, right? Only a judge can give you community service," right? And then it pissed her off. Now I done pissed off the preacher, and I done pissed off the state police lady, right? She was like, "I tell you what, you try me. You be doing 100 hours of community service," right? And I was just like, "Calm down, lady. You know what I'm saying? It ain't that big of a deal. I'm not satanic," right? I'm sitting here telling this black woman, and she's looking at me like I'm a devil worshiper now. And I'm like, "Look, lady, I ain't satanic. I go to church." I go to church. but you wear one Slayer shirt, and then like I said, then that made me not like the preacher. So then I did a little research into the preacher and found out that this dude was a really bad person and don't need to be around kids. Okay. You worried about a damn Slayer shirt when you got a damn horrible ass person running the church. So, I don't know. I guess he thought he was going to get me locked back up or something, but that wasn't the case. You can't. I didn't have jail time over my head. I didn't have prison time over my head. There wasn't really nothing they could do, right? The lady threatened to give me more community service. So what I started doing was I would show up, right? And they always stood around for like an hour and something before you had to go to work at this thrift store. This is a little Dolly story time. So time it took you to drive to the thrift store, you done ate up a couple hours, right? I'd get there and go, "Okay, I got to go." Then I get back in my car and leave. And I do it every morning. I wouldn't do nothing. Just wouldn't do nothing, right? Because you slow as hell getting to the thrift, because they got to all gather together. And as soon as I show up at the church, my time starts. So time it takes you get from the church to the thrift store, I'd be like, "All right, that's all I'm doing today." And then I would leave. And I did all my time like that, right? So the whole time I had to avoid this preacher. There was another guy there that was actually a good person. He's like, "Look, man, just stay over here. The guy's a weirdo." You know what I'm saying? But he is the preacher, and we got to listen to him. So but there was some good people at the church. It was just ran by a weirdo. Okay. And I mean like a weirdo. Like, who the hell put this guy in charge of the church? Who knows? But that's what I'm saying. Everybody that is the preacher of a church is not a good person. Just because you're the one up there on stage and you're the one out there reading the Bible to people, you may be the worst person in the church. True story.
Carol, would you like to comment on
I'll be happy to comment. I'll be happy to comment it. What he may have done psychologically, the affair or the affairs that he had has nothing to do with the physical evidence of her committing suicide. And also,
Oh, this is a good comment. If Dolly wore Slayer one more time, Johnny Depp would be belling him out. You know that's true, right? If you a Satanist, they get you out quick.
Like to see the angle of the weapon. I would like to see if there's any residue.
Oh, the medical examiner has said that everything is consistent with self-inflicted.
Yeah, but women don't tend to shoot themselves, just so you know, statistically.
did.
Yeah, but I know she
She's
did,
not
but somebody could
tending.
have done that right close like that.
I don't think the allegation is that someone else is there and pulled the trigger. I believe that the allegation is a consistent abusive dynamic that drove her to this spot. And if
This dude is the only dude that has any sense. He's right. That is basically what it is. This man literally drove this person to commit the self-harming that they did. You know, it's just like if you bully somebody in school, right? You bully them and you bully them and you bully them, and they're scared to go to school, but they got to go to school. And you're just beating up on them and you're bullying them and abusing them and abusing them. And then they do something horrible. Who's at fault? The bully. The bully's at fault. You caused this person to have this fear or anxiety or this depression, and you did it in little tiny spurts, like where this person believed they couldn't get away from you. The only way to get away from you was to leave this planet. And that's exactly what this preacher did. Okay? It's exactly what he did. And while he was doing it, he was showing up on Sunday and preaching to families and kids while he was basically stalking and torturing a woman until she hurt herself. Shame on this dude. There's a special type of place in hell for people like this. Now, like I was saying, I want to get into some more stuff on this before I open up the phone lines and open up the panel. And basically, you know, like I said, the state didn't help Mica. They didn't do nothing for her. It took the feds to come in. And I wish the feds would have done more myself, right? And, you know, I believe in this world that karma is real. And, you know, he will be judged and he's facing 7 years and $250,000. But he got to remember, he's not just going to be judged once. Because when he leaves this planet, he's going to be judged again. And, you know, it's what's in your heart. It ain't what you say. You can say, Jesus loves me, I love Jesus 1,000,000 times. But if that ain't in your heart, God knows, right? So when that judgment day comes, he's going to have to answer for what he did to this woman, which is horrendous, is horrible, and to me is unforgivable. He, you know, he should be in a prison cell where he's treated just like he treated this woman. And it's hard for me to say that, you know. I respect most churches. I do. I respect most preachers. You know, I respect the book. I don't always, you know, I ain't always the best Christian. You know, I fuck up, right? But this is beyond effing up. This goes way beyond that. This goes into manipulation and deceit and just every sin you can think of. This man has broke. Okay, like it's just unbelievable. But let's jump into this because we know we got to hear what Aunt Nancy has to say about this federal indictment. 7 years, $250,000 fine. I don't think it's nothing, right? I don't think it's enough. Like if that was my family, I would be like, man, this is bullshit. I think that, and it ain't my family. Like I feel bad for Mica's family knowing that she was treated like this and done like this, and there's going to be no repercussions for it. None, just the cyber stalking, the lying he did on his own. But I clearly believe that this was an abused woman. I'm probably the whole time, and maybe before she was even 18 years old. I mean, even out of her own mouth, she said she was groomed. So she knew what was going on with it. Like, I don't think Mica was a stupid woman at all. She knew this man was plotting on her since she was 10 years old.
Would not do. They bring down the hammer on the so-called pastor John Paul Miller after the shocking death of his young wife, who he allegedly harassed straight into a gun shop. But first, before I get into those charges, thank you, feds, let's take a listen to the now federal defendant, John Paul Miller, at his finest.
I got this lay next to her body and spent time with her body about 4 times this week, and each time it still didn't hit me. I thought she was going to wake up. I even tried to raise her from the dead one time this week.
Tell me that ain't cult leader shit, right? He tried to raise her from the dead. All right, who? I tried to raise her from the dead. If that ain't cult leader mentality, if that ain't something a cult leader would say, I don't know what else was. You see, he's crying, but there's no tears. Where's the tears? Listen, when I cry, I got snot bubbles, tears running down my face. My eyes swell up. You can tell I'm crying. I see so many people with these fake ass crying. But where's the tears at? Your eye dry as a damn Ben Stein dry eye commercial. When you naturally cry, the first thing that's gonna happen, your eyes are gonna get bloodshot red. They're gonna start leaking water. Your nose is gonna start running because of them tears in your tear duct. You're gonna start to get a snotty nose. Your voice is gonna break and crack naturally. This shit right here is fake. Okay? Fake. It ain't even good acting. It's not even good acting. So I mean, wow.
And she was so creative. Everything she did was so creative. What's the next picture?
Where's the next picture?
I've been speaking for.
And the rubbing the eyes, trying to rub your eyes dry. Oh my God. We also seen Daniel Martell do that in the Jack and Lily case. Remember how he rubs his eyes? And even between him and Malaya Brooks, they couldn't shed one tear for their missing kids. Like this, I'm not brand new to this true crime stuff, right? We've been doing this stuff together for years. We know fake crying when we see fake crying.
Many years, and for the first time, I don't really know exactly, how to open or how to close or any of that.
I'm going to have to play that again. That is from Solid Rock Ministries. Does he actually think I'm buying this? There were no tears, and definitely.
Nancy is a G, okay? Nancy is a G.
Definitely no snot. I need to see that one more time.
I can't wait to see her.
I don't know about the snot, but there ain't no tears, okay? There's no tears, Nancy.
Again one day. I'm good. And that's nothing. She was so creative. It was just always just coming out of her.
So many things just jump out at me. Again, that is from Solid Rock Ministries. For those of you just joining us, the pastor, John Paul Miller, finally facing federal charges in connection to his wife, Mica Miller. First of all, he says, after all these years, of speaking, he suggests that he is short of words. He doesn't know what to say, but yet he keeps talking. He says he doesn't like pain. Well, get ready for a boatload of it, John Paul Miller. Joining me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning. Straight out to Alexis Tereszchuk, Crime Stories investigative reporter. Alexis, the feds finally bring down the hammer. This after hundreds and hundreds of online protests.
Okay, I don't know if you could consider max 7 years bringing down the hammer, right? That's more like bringing down maybe a gavel, but that damn sure ain't the hammer. If it is, it ain't a sledgehammer. It's a thumbtack hammer, the little tiny ass hammers you put thumbtacks in with. 7 years for what this man done is not shit, and that's the max he can get. That's the max. If they give him the full max on everything, 7 years. Okay. and a $250,000 fine. Of course, the money ain't even a thing because the church end up paying the money. The 7 years is where, is that justice? Is that justice for somebody's life that he basically took from this woman? What little bit of sanity she had left, he took.
Us appealing to LE law enforcement to bring charges. What are the charges, Alexis Tereszchuk?
He has been charged with cyber stalking, and I'm going to read exactly the indictment that John Paul Miller, sent or caused to be sent unwanted and harassing electronic communications to her, used or threatened to use nude videos and photographs of her, posted a nude photo of her online without her consent, placed or caused to be placed a tracking device on her vehicle with the intent to harass and surveil her. And he interfered with her finances, banking, and interfered with her daily activities. He also made a false statement to law enforcement. They said he did knowingly and willfully make a material of false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in representation in this case. He said that they had been calling each other back and forth. The Fed said, nope, you called her more than 50 times in one day, harassing her. He said, I never damaged her car tires. They said, you actually bought a tool to deflate car tires. And this, in fact, you caused these tires on her car to be deflated.
That's a lot from the feds. Guys, finally, what many justice champions have longed for since Mica's body was found at the Lumber River State Park. The feds bring down the hammer and do what state authorities refused to do. Listen.
Law enforcement is notified by...
I would say bringing down the hammer, this man faces 25 years, right? That's the hammer, right? That's enough to make you ball up in a ball and they got to drag you back to the jail cell. 7 years, Fed time, you do, let's see, 85% of that time, you will be out in 5.5 years. So, I mean, and that's at the max, 5.5 years. And that's doing all your time. That ain't like paroling out. That is serving your time, 5.5 years. To me, man, that is not bringing down the hammer. When you hear 25 years, that's when you see people cry, and you see them really cry then. All right. Once they go, yeah, man, you're going to prison for the next 25 years. You will see, I see thug ass street dudes cry. Okay. Like tears, bawling, coughing, can't catch their breath, like panic attack sets in and they just collapse. That's justice. Okay. Then you know they're feeling it. Right, that's 7 years. That ain't shit for this woman's life. And this was a pretty beautiful woman that he did this to, that had her whole life in front of her and just destroyed it.
By 911 dispatch that Mica Miller is in Lumber River State Park, and they begin searching. Mica Miller's phone is pinged at 3:20 p.m., and law enforcement has a drone dispatched to the area to help search. At 3:42, Mica's car is located in the parking lot of the Lumber River State Park. Inside the car, investigators find a 9mm Sig Sauer hard gun case and receipt showing the location of where the weapon was purchased.
Many devotees still insist Mica Miller was murdered, but here is hard evidence.
Investigators at Lumber River State Park are notified by a kayaker at 4:23 p.m. that a body is in the river and a black...
Dolly, you keep saying the church will pay. We don't know how much money he put aside, right? He has the money for these attorneys. How much money did he make at the church? You know, he could have banked millions of dollars off these churches. Some of these pastors are multi-millionaires. So they may not pay like future payments, but the money he has now came from the church. How do you think he hired the attorneys he got? Where do you think he makes his money? Where do you think he got his house? All that came from church money. Vehicles. I don't think this dude was living badly. You know, you live in a house that's worth $500,000. It's still church money. He sells assets. He pays the bills. It still came from the church. So anyway, you look at it, It's all Jesus blood money. To me, that's how I look at it.
Bag with ID and money found on the bank of the river is turned over to law enforcement as well. Officers recovered 2 spent casings and 1 live round on the bank of the river, and there's no sign of a physical struggle. A regional pathologist is called to the scene for assistance. Mica Miller is found submerged in the river beside tree limbs, about 100 feet from the casings.
There is a concerning aspect to
that. Is weird though. She is 100 feet from the casings. Make good sense. Okay, my conspiracy people out here. Did that set off a red flag for anybody? She's 100 feet from the cases. The casings. I ain't seen one gun yet that will eject the casing 50 feet from the gun. I've never seen a gun that will eject the case that far away. Because I was thinking, well, maybe she went out into the water and she done it. Because if she shot herself, she fell wherever she shot herself at. Them bullet casings didn't fly unless she loaded and there was bullets on the dot. But the casings should have been in the water where she was at. That's suspicious. Oh my God, that's so suspicious. Like, I would say at that point, she was murdered. I mean, if you got casings on the land and she's in the water, okay, unless she fell right into the water. But how did she get 50 feet? Did she float 50 feet? That is like she's been moved. Yeah. Like, yeah, how? How do you get out into the water but the bullet casings are on the land? And you shoot yourself a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. You think she shot herself in the head and walked out into the water? That didn't happen. not in this reality. Not in this reality. Like, how could you say? Now, if she fell into the water and floated out a little bit, possibly. I mean, possibly. But I would think 50 feet from where she was at? That just seems, I mean, unless the current, she got pulled out into the water a little ways, maybe. And if in case they said casings, that means she fired more than one shot. How many people shoot themselves in the head more than once? Casings 50 feet away. Casings? What do you mean casings? Usually people that shoot themselves one time, okay? One time, and after that, you're not able to shoot yourself again, okay? Like, usually you don't see people with 37 self-inflicted gunshot wounds. It just don't happen. I mean, that is damn suspicious. Multiple gun casings. That means multiple shots. She's 50 feet away from the shell casings. You tell me somebody that can shoot themselves in the head and make it 50 feet. I mean, I guess it could be possible, but highly unlikely. Okay, that's strange. That is a strange one. I didn't know that. Wow, I had to reconsider my thoughts on this. Like, did he pay somebody to do something to her? Was she being held when she made that call? Was she being held at gunpoint? Or her fingerprints on the gun? The gun was the gun's in the water. Okay? They find the gun in the water. The gun's in the water, she's in the water, but the shell casings are on land. 50 feet from the body. How the hell is that possible? The more I'm thinking about it, my squirrels are working on it right now, thinking, how could that happen? Okay, let's just say she shoots herself on land. Okay. Because, you know, them gun casings may shoot out about, I give them 3-4 feet. All right. 3 or 4 feet. Boop. They're going to be like, they eject out the gun, hit the ground, bounce, roll a little bit. Okay. I mean, I would have to really test the firearm to see it, but a 6 hour one ain't a really good gun. And thank you for Karen, justice for Micah. Well, thank you, Heather, whatever. All right. Now we're just $10 super chats away from me giving this signed hat away. Okay. 7 to go. Thank you for riding the Blessed Express tonight, too. All right. So I don't know. Was this woman murdered? You figure if she, okay, first thing you do this, right? The first thing you're going to do is drop the gun, right? You're going to drop the gun. The gun is going to fall to the ground. You may fall into the water. I mean, I don't know, unless you're holding the gun and you fall into the water. But usually you do that, you're going to go limp and the gun's going to fall. So the gun should have been on the ground where the bullet casings were. But yet the gun is in the water, she's in the water, and the casings are 50 feet from them. That's wild. That is absolutely insane.
The discovery of a 9mm Sig Sauer. Dr. Kendall Crown's joining us.
Thank you,
He is a
Dan.
renowned chief medical examiner out of Tarrant County. That's Fort Worth. Never a lack of business in the morgue there. He is the esteemed lecturer at Burnett School of Medicine at TCU, and he is a star of a hit new podcast, Mayhem in the Morgue. Dr. Kendall Crowns, thank you for being with us. The 9mm is removed from the river using a magnet. The serial number on the gun matches the number on the gun case in Micah's car.
But then again, she did buy the firearm. Okay, we got to take that in consideration. So she did buy the firearm. It is the firearm that was used. Did she do it and then she fall into the water and the current pull her out? And if the gun fell right into the edge of the water, why would they need a magnet to get it out? I don't know. Everything's just not, it sounds a little odd.
Is that feasible that she committed and the SIG is abandoned in the river?
Yes, it is. I mean, her body is found in the river as well. So the potential is she places the gun to the right side of her head, pulls the trigger, and then instantly her body goes limp. She falls into the river while still kind of clutching the gun or holding the gun, or the gun itself just falls into the river and slides down in the mud. Her body falls in, floats away, gun goes into the river as well. It is consistent with someone shooting themselves in the head and then losing body function, dropping the gun and falling into the waterway.
There's also the issue, and let me go to...
I mean, she would have had to float out because there's no way that the gun would be 50. She's 50 feet from the casings. The gun can't be that far from the casings. It can't be because the gun is heavy. It's going to sink like a rock. The current ain't going to, it depends on the river, I guess, how strong the current is in the river to pull the gun away. But it still seems odd to me.
To Regina Ward. She is the attorney for Mica Miller's sister. She is with her law firm that she founded, the Regina Ward Law Firm. And she has been staunchly supporting Micah's family since before Micah was killed. Regina Ward, thank you for being with us. Is it true the Sig Sauer was found about 5 feet underwater, submerged from Micah's body?
Well, I can't say for myself if it was true or not, but that's what was reported, obviously.
So that means the gun was 45 feet from the casings. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. Okay, if she's found 50 feet from the casing, the gun's found 5 feet from her. There's no way. There's no way. That gun didn't float out there and sink. There's just no way. There's just no humanly possible way. She would have instantly went limp. That gun would have dropped from her hand. Okay? That gun, if she was standing at the edge of the water, that gun would be in the edge of the water. That gun didn't float and sink. The gun's going to sink instantly, like a rock. We're talking about a steel metal gun, right? If I take it's not going to float away. It's not going to happen. I mean, I could do the experiment right here with my stuff, but I just cleaned it. I ain't dropping it in no water. But it ain't floating away. Okay, it's not even with the rubber grips like PJs has plastic parts, some of it, and it's not going to float away. It's going to sink. Okay, so there's no way that a 6 hour floated. It just didn't happen. So that means from the shell casings on land, that gun was 45 feet in the water. 45 feet. Count 45 feet out. That shit is a waste. That's somebody threw that gun. That sounds like somebody did it, threw the gun in the water, and left her there. I mean, how does the gun get so far from the shell case? To me, that is a huge red flag. Somebody needs to explain that one to me. How a gun gets 45 feet from the shell casings in water. The gun didn't swim out there. Hold on. Let me go over here with my owner. No. And if she fell in the water, she would have released the gun. She went limp. What's gripping the gun? Nothing. So even if she's floating, it ain't like the gun's floating with her. Let me float out here with you. To me, that sounds damn near impossible. It makes zero sense whatsoever. Zip.
I wasn't there for that, but I've had several questions about that entire investigation. It was just approached in the wrong manner, in my opinion. So as far as whether it was or not, that's what the report says.
Curious that you would say that. Dr. Kendall Crowns, if the
Okay, Dolly, my friend's ex was given 8 yesterday for burglary, and he got out in 2 years for good behavior. Well, if he just got sentenced to 8 yesterday, how did he do 2 years in 1 day? You lost me on that one there, Steve Teller. If he got 8 years yesterday for burglary, how did he get out in 2 years if he just went to prison yesterday? Okay, that confused me right there. Okay.
the SIG was found, say, 20 or 30 feet away from the body, would you still think it was?
So there's a potential when you shoot yourself in the head for there to be actual movement after the wound occurs. It really depends on what is involved in the brain. There's an area of the brain called the motor strip that kind of sits on the side of your head that controls your function of your arms, your limbs, etc. If that isn't hit, if you go a little more forward, you hit the frontal lobes of your brain, which is more memory, feelings, emotions, things of that nature. You are able to still walk after a gunshot wound to the head. Albeit,
You ain't walking 45 feet out into the water. Somebody, is this dude a pathologist? Fire him immediately. Okay. Oh my God. Did he just say that?
not super far, but you
Dear
can't
Lord
do that.
in heaven.
Nancy ain't no idiot. Like, listen, come on now. That don't even make good sense. That don't even make good sense. Shot herself in the head, then walked 45 feet with a gun before she dropped it in the water. That would have been over her head. That don't even make good sense. I don't know what Nancy's going to say to him, but oh my God.
Do you hear yourself?
Do you hear yourself, bro? Hey, Doc. Hey, Doc, do you hear what you're saying? Like, where do they find these experts? We're like, is it like the frontal lobe is absolutely not associated with emotions and memories. The sky is incorrect. I think you meant this guy is incorrect. This dude right here, he should have never said that. I mean, listen, I know it's possible that you could shoot yourself in the head and still have some function. Believe it or not, there was a young man here where I live. He shot himself live on the internet, and when he woke up, he he shot himself and a bullet came out of the top of his head. You know, it burnt his hair to his bone in his head. But he was in Chesapeake General Hospital, and they moved him to Norfolk, which is a trauma unit. But he lived. They thought he was going to be like paralyzed, couldn't speak. He woke up, and believe it or not, he had missed his frontal lobe, and he actually shot himself in through the brain and came out the top of his skull. And they said there was like 8% chance this boy would live, right? Like 8%. They were basically like writing his funeral up, right? And he woke up and looked over at his dad and said, "What happened?" He never remembered. He was upset with his family, is why he did it. You can look it up; it's in the news. He was upset with his family, and the neighbor just happened to be watching the live stream. And basically, he shot himself, and it was brutal. They thought he was dead for sure. 8% chance of living, and he's done a bunch of different facial reconstructive surgeries because somehow he blew part of his sinuses out, so they had to reconstruct some of his face. But the last I read on the young man, he was expected to make a full recovery. So it is possible that you can shoot yourself in the head. But I mean, like I said, he went limp, and of course he woke up in the hospital. He didn't walk 50 feet, but there is the possibility that you could still move a little bit. I'll give you a prime example. I was covering the Tekashi 6ix9ine federal indictment, and there's a guy that was involved with Tekashi 6ix9ine, and he goes by the name of Snowbilly. Okay, Snowbilly. I tried to get him on a channel a few times for interviews. He's called in a few times, and back when I was doing JM's TV, because it was all gang related criminal stuff that I covered. And he was literally shot in the head twice. Okay. Shot in the head twice. He always wears a turban now, for anybody that's familiar with rap music. But Snowbilly he said multiple different things. This dude lies all the time. But he was truly shot in the head twice. And he walked, I think, 2 miles to a gas station, shot in the head twice. And he lived. But when he got him, they got him. They took him to the hospital. When he recovered, they put him in Rikers Island. So he's like a Bloods member. But he was shot in the head twice and was able to get up and walk 2 miles. It may have been 2 miles, 2 blocks. I don't know. He walked 2 something, right? But he walked to a gas station, called for help. And of course, when they got there, he got charged with a bunch of stuff, conspiracy to commit murder or some shit. But not a good person. And he was the one, I don't remember, y'all remember back in the era of Tekashi 6ix9ine getting robbed. He was plotting to rob Tekashi 6ix9ine, and he was like a high-ranking Bloods member. He goes by the name Snowbilly. But so you can get shot in maneuver. But I think when he got shot, he fell out and woke up and was shot. I don't think he got shot and just like, oh, let me walk to the store. So, I don't know. I don't think the case is this lady shot herself on land. She floated out 50. I mean, it's possible she could have floated out that far, but what I'm saying is impossible for that gun to have floated 45 feet from that where she shot herself. Impossible.
That after she shoots herself in the head, she can still walk.
Obviously right. It is potential, yes.
Okay. When a witness says something crazy on the stand, I have to declare them a hostile witness and I have to cross-examine them. And that's what I've got to do now. Dr. Kendall Crowns, of course, you are the medical doctor. I'm just a JD. You're the MD. But let me go out on a limb here. How many times have you seen a victim shoot themselves in the head and their body is still where the gunshot occurred and they continue to walk? How many cases have you personally dealt with like that?
I wouldn't be able to give you an exact percentage. It's a small percentage of cases, but I have seen it.
I didn't ask for a percentage.
10.
I asked you how many. I bet you can count them on one finger.
No, I can count it on probably more than 10 fingers. In over 25 years of doing autopsies, I have seen multiple cases of individuals still able to function after shooting themselves in the head. I can't tell you exact numbers while we're sitting
You said walk. I don't mean function. You said walk. Take steps.
Exactly. You may move and twitch a little bit and be like, oh, you know? But as far as taking a stroll 45, 50 feet away in the water, swim out into the lake, I don't see it either. I got to agree with Nancy, right? I know I ain't an MD. We have an MD in the chat, right? I'm not, but like I said, I do know it is possible. I know it's possible. And I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's highly unlikely. And listen, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's just say she shot herself and then she jumped in the water and backstroked out 50 feet. How did the gun get 45 feet from where it was fired? Okay. Because you're going to drop that. You're going to go limp. Right. I ain't never seen nobody yet to get, and I've seen people get shot in the head. Like I watched some terrible stuff online and I ain't never seen nobody just walk away. Like it's just no, they usually get stretchered away and they live, or they take a couple steps and fall. But far as like what they're describing, it don't seem like it could happen. Look, just like Charlie Kirk. Oh my God, dude, that was brutal. That was absolutely brutal. And you've seen how far he made it. Okay. He completely went limp and he didn't even get shot in the head. He got shot in the neck. He said, blood said, and he just, boom. Prayers to Charlie Kirk and his family. That was horrific. And they allowed that video to be played every year. It's almost like they wanted people to see it. Like, I don't want to get political here, but a lot of these channels and stuff are controlled by the opposition. And I just felt like they wanted that shown. Like, they wasn't striking it, blocking it. I mean, it was on every social media shit. It was everywhere. Like, I don't never remember them ever showing any other assassinations like that. Maybe John F. Kennedy you can watch, right? But that was straight up an assassination. I think there's more to it. I'm gonna have to go with, what's that black lady? Who's the black lady that was Charlie Kirk's friend? I'm gonna have to go with her on this one. I can't forget her name. That everybody hates. They all hate the lady. What the hell is her name? Candace Owens. There you go. Thank you guys. Thank you, Candace. I'm gonna have to go with Candace. We had to go with Candace on that one. Okay, we had to go straight. We're like, man, I don't know about that one. That was a little bit. That was a little bad. But you see, he was limp quick, but they did hit a major artery in his neck. So the quickest way to go unconscious is to cut off blood flow to the brain. I learned that jujitsu. Two major arteries that run through your neck. There's a difference between a wind choke and a blood choke. Blood choke will have you unconscious in a matter of seconds. Air choke takes minutes for you to go unconscious. So that's why when you see people in the UFC. They're cutting off the carotid arteries on the side. That's why they wrap their arm around your neck, because when you really, all you gotta do is press. You press hard like this on the sides of your neck, you'll go limp in a matter of seconds. I competed in a jiu-jitsu tournament. This guy caught me in a clock choke where he basically reached into my collar and he pulled my collar like this. And he only had one side of my neck blocked with his hand like this. But the collar choked me on this side and his hand was choking me on this side. I went limp in like 5-6 seconds. Boop, out, limp. Woke up there shaking your feet to wake you up, trying to get the blood back to your brain, because it just cuts the blood off to your brain. And when your brain don't have no blood, you go limp so fast, like boop, like a noodle. And basically when he choked me, I tried to get away, but I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't see the move coming. He did it kind of slick. And I tried to roll away, but instead of rolling away from the choke, I rode into the choke. So it tightened the choke up. And I was, like I said, it couldn't have been no more than 4 seconds. I was unconscious. I mean, so quick, it was like boom, 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 done. They're waking me up like, what the hell happened? So, of course, when he hit that artery in his neck, he had no blood going to his brain. So he was limp, instantly limp. It was basically just, he didn't really even have time to grab it before he was over onto the ground. I mean, that's how fast, with no blood to your brain, that you'll go unconscious. It takes, like I said, air chokes. When you cut off the airway, it takes a little bit longer for your brain to lose consciousness, right? So, yeah, but I call BS on the gun being 45 feet away from the shore.
After they shoot themselves in the head.
Okay, well, I'll rephrase function to walk, but I have seen
Yes, you go ahead and rephrase it, Crowns.
Walk after shooting themselves in the head, including with shotguns. It is all placement on where you hit yourself in your brain and how much you'll be able to do afterwards. And it depends on where she's shot in her brain, how much movement she can have. But placement of gun, if you're going to do theoretical, yes, someone could shoot themselves in the head and then walk several feet, maybe even 10 yards away from the gun before they collapse or fall into a river and float away.
Dr. Kendall Crowns, just so you know, you're losing a lot of credibility right now.
Nancy should say, well, what about the gun? How was the gun so far away? I can understand logically how she's so far away. She was standing on the edge of the water. She pulled the trigger. She fell into the water. She floated out a little ways and she sank. Okay. Because, a body, you think you'll float, but you will actually sink like Riley Strand until your body fills up with gases. And then those gases will make you float. Okay. We've learned all about this true crime journey over the years. We've learned a lot, right? About bodies decaying, bodies floating. And believe it or not, you can tie a cinder block to somebody and you throw them in the water, they'll sink. But when their body fills up with gas, it fills up with enough gas that it'll lift multiple cinder blocks up out the water. I didn't know that, but it will. You fill up with that much gas. And then, when you fill up with the gas, you'll float, right? And there's a certain amount of time it takes for your body to fill up with this gas. Then your body will lose that gas and you will sink back to the bottom again. All right. So she floated out and didn't sink, but she did float or the current pulled her out. But like I said, it still don't explain the gun. Now, I ain't no expert, but I mean, I've covered a lot of cases and I've learned a lot of things along the way. The gun part, you can make that make sense. She floated out. Metal don't float. I mean, unless it's a ship and it's meant to float. But most metal, you drop it in the water, it's going to fall straight to the bottom of where it fell in.
But I guess you're sticking up from one of your medical examiner friends that performed this autopsy. Dr. Kendall Crowns, there's a fly in the
I'm not sticking up for anybody. I'm just sticking up for science.
Do I have to cut your mic?
Feel free.
There's a fly in the ointment. And that fly in the ointment of your scenario is she would have had to walk through water after she shoots herself in the head. How many cases have you seen like that? Where after the person shoots themselves in the head, they walk out in the water.
So I'm not sure how she's walking in the water. How is she not shooting herself on the riverbank and then falling forward into the water, floating away while as the gun floats down underneath her? That part I don't understand.
You know, Dr.
how did the gun get
you
so
have
far
a
away?
second career in writing fiction. In the meantime, while I let Dr. Kendall Crowns think about what he just said, Regina Ward, the significance of this line of questioning is if the investigation had shown that the weapon, the SIG-9, was substantially far away from her, as if it had been thrown in the river to
That's what I
discard
said.
it
Guns
after
don't
the
float.
shooting, that would open up a whole nother investigation, wouldn't it, Regina Ward?
Absolutely, it would. And let me tell you something else that would have opened up a better investigation, in my opinion, is that had the Robeson County authorities who were
John Paul don't have to be there. They know he wasn't there. He was off having a relationship with another woman. We know that. They know where John Paul was at. But that don't mean John Paul hired a PI to follow her. That don't mean he didn't hire somebody to hurt her. Or, but it's weird because the only thing I would say to that is she purchased this gun. She purchased the gun. Now, if she hadn't have purchased the gun, I would say, okay, yeah, somebody shot her and threw the gun in the water. But she purchased this gun. Why would she purchase a gun for somebody else to shoot her with? That don't make a whole lot of sense either. So there has to be some reasonable explanation to this. I thought she walked out in the water and shot herself, but then how did the bullet cases get on the shore? I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird situation. Like, you would have a hard time explaining that one to me because I'd be like, guns don't float, and she's 50 feet from the bank. The gun is 45 feet from the bank, unless for some reason the gun was stuck on her finger, and as she floated out, it fell off her finger. I mean, that would be the only explanation that would make any kind of sense.
were doing the investigation, had they known about the history of this case and the sheer terror that Mr. Miller put her through and the harassment and so forth, had they known about that history prior to their investigation into her death, they may have approached it a little differently. I feel like that they approached it with the mindset, oh, it's a self-taking of a life. Therefore, let's go find the proof to prove that's what happened, as opposed to walking into it saying to themselves, this may not be what it appears, so let's look closer for evidence that may prove that it was not a self-taking of the life.
We do, however, and let's see it, Control Room, we do have her supporting Dr. Kendall Crown's assertion in a gun store shortly before purchasing the Sig Sauer. That is significant because it can be matched up by serial number. The gun store keeps a log of serial numbers on guns sold. She did buy the weapon. You know, Alexis Tereszczuk, joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter, was outlining the charges in the new federal indictment. For those of you just joining us, the feds bring down the hammer on Pastor John Paul Miller in connection with his wife, Mica Miller, found dead in a public forest. Listen to this.
Just weeks before her death, Mica Miller calls police for help when she finds a tire on her car is flat. Police discover a tire deflator is used on the tire. Mica goes to East Coast Honda in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to get a new tire, where John Paul Miller shows up. The two get into an argument. Video shows John Paul Miller aggressively walking around Mica, threatening to post a picture online, while Mica says, walk away. A mechanic later shows Mica a GPS tracking device had been placed on her car.
A geo-tracking device placed on her car. Video has actually caught John Paul Miller aggressively walking around Mica, threatening to post a picture online. Alexis Tereszchuk joining us, Crime Stories investigative reporter. What picture would that have been, the one he threatened to post?
A topless photo of her. So a topless where she doesn't have anything on and exposing her breasts.
Joining me now, Chris Melcher. He's a veteran trial lawyer, celebrity lawyer, partner at Walser, Melcher, and Yoda. He has deep experience in complex family law litigation at walsermelcher.com. Chris Melcher, this isn't helping anything. That is encompassed in this new federal indictment against John Paul Miller. Even if you're married to someone, you can't just post nudie shots of them without their consent.
What's going to be difficult is that the victim of these alleged offenses, Mica, can't speak for herself. And that creates a difficulty for the prosecution and an opportunity for the defense to try to explain these things, because couples do, get into arguments. They'll do things for whatever reasons. And this kind of gives John Paul Miller potentially a free hand in his defense to try and explain away what looks like some very awful facts.
Such as posting nudie shots of Mica that he took in private, posting them online. Let's just follow your argument through, Chris Melcher, to its logical conclusion. I think what you're saying in regular people talk, not lawyerese, is that Miller could now argue his wife, Mica, was fine with the nudie shot being posted on social. That was okay, that she was into that?
This is kind of the problem is that he can start making up or manufacturing defenses like that this was consented to. This was part of their relationship. She was okay with it. It was a joke, whatever he's going to say. Now, maybe these things don't make sense or they're not credible, but Mica's not there to defend herself. They're not there to say, no, I wouldn't have done that. Now, sometimes the circumstances show that no reasonable person would consent to something like that, and it's just a ridiculous defense. But my sense is there's going to be a lot of communications between these parties, and he may be able to establish something here, like with example, for the tracking device. He's had some explanation why he might wanted to track her, why he wanted to control her movements, why he wanted to control her spending. He has had some explanations around that.
Okay, well, you know what you are reminding me of, Chris Melcher, in my days as a felony prosecutor, when a defendant would say, Miss Grace, I want to plead guilty with an explanation. I don't care what his explanation is. Guilty. If he put a tracking device on her car,
guilty,
and she did not consent to it, I don't care why he thought he needed to do it. Doesn't matter. State doesn't have to prove motive, does it, Chris Melcher?
Well, so there's a difference between being a crime and being an act of domestic violence, which is a civil matter. So under South Carolina law and other states,
domestic violence is not a crime in your world.
No, it can be both. It can be an act of abuse that justifies a restraining order. It also can form a crime. But with the tracking device, the owner of a vehicle, whether it's jointly owned or solely owned, I don't know how this was titled, has the right to place a tracking device on it. So it's not a crime to do so, but placing a tracking device on her vehicle, even if legal under South Carolina law, without her consent and done for the purpose of tracking her movements for purposes of harassment,
that would be felony stalking, right? Wouldn't it? I would think in Virginia, if I was to go put a tracking device on somebody and then follow them, that would be felony stalking. He was stalking this woman. Felony stalking carries years in prison. Cyber harassment, cyberbullying is what they're going to charge him with, and not felony stalking. He was stalking this woman. When they split up, they wasn't together. Just because you're married don't mean you don't have free will to do whatever you want. Just because you're married don't mean your husband can follow you around. That don't when you take the ring and say I do, don't mean that a dude can bully you, beat you, stalk you, harass you, do all those things. It just means you married to death do you part. That, to me, like, he should be charged with more severe crimes in this situation.
Would be an act of domestic violence. But what I understand his statements to be is that he was concerned about her conduct and safety, and that he wanted to protect her. And just like a parent might, put a tracking device on a child or any loved one who maybe has issues, that is a protective measure. So this is what I'm saying he may very well claim.
Okay, Chris Melcher. Now I know why you win so many cases. You're like a snake charmer. You go that way and that way with your crazy legal defense, and some people are actually going right along with you. Dr. Bethany Marshall, I need a shrink, and I need it quickly. Dr. Bethany Marshall, renowned psychoanalyst, joining us out of LA. You can
look at them eyebrows. Oh Lord, this is the shrink. Somebody need to shrink her eyebrows. Shrink that damn lip injection. Somebody need to do some shrinking on her shit, right? Shrink the makeup down a little bit. This is like Molly at 60, right?
see her now on Peacock, author of Deal Breaker, and find her at drbethanymarshall.com. Did you hear what he just said? Chris Melcher stated that maybe John Paul Miller placed a tracking device on his wife's vehicle out of concern for her safety. I guess she's just another hysterical woman.
So did he also slash her tires out of concern for her safety so she couldn't get away? He was afraid she couldn't drive. A better way to protect his wife would have been to cherish her, be faithful to her, say nice things to her about herself, not humiliate her by putting a naked photo out online. Nancy, did you hear when he was announcing to the congregation that he had visited the quote unquote body several times the week before? The body, he called his wife a body. It's like she wasn't even a person to him. She was just an object to control.
Yeah, he didn't even say my wife. I got to spend time with my wife, her remains. He said, I was laying next to her body and I tried to resurrect her. And I don't think of a new topless photo. I mean, she may be a little shameful, but I don't think it'd be too embarrassing. She's a very pretty woman, So, but still, she probably wouldn't want things out there like that. She wouldn't want her family and stuff like that seeing it. At first glance, I thought it was Molly, like an older version.
And what I'm going to guess is that there was a lot of control in that marriage, that he dominated her. And as she became increasingly independent, which domestic violence victims, sometimes they do get their safety, that he was escalating and escalating, and it just got worse and worse. If he was afraid for her safety, take her to a doctor's visit and get her evaluated. Don't slash her tires.
And even an earthly spouse who's a good spouse, when they know that their bride is being hurt, just imagine what an earthly spouse does. What do you think your heavenly spouse does when you're the bride of Christ and he sees his bride going through abuse and hurt? What do you think he thinks about that?
Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. You guys tell me your thoughts. Did this man drive this lady to take her own life? Should he be held more accountable for what has happened to Mica? How did the gun get out into the water 45 feet from the shell casings, if that is in fact true? Is there, the man putting tracking devices? Now, I'm sure some of you ladies out here have been through situations of domestic harm. And I know some of you probably didn't call the police, and some of you may have. But hopefully all of you got away from that. Because I tell you this, if somebody's going to be mean to you or abuse you, they ain't going to stop. They ain't going to change. If you're in a relationship right now where there's violence going on and you think it's going to get better, you're foolish. It's not going to get better. Even when they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't believe I did that. I'll never do it again." And then they're nice to you for a little bit, just to be mean and abuseful again when they get mad. or they lose their temper. And then it's, oh, I'm sorry, baby. I want you back. I can't believe I did that to you. You need to get out of that relationship while you're still alive. Okay. That's the best advice that I could give somebody that's in that type of relationship. And there may be somebody watching right now that is going through that. You don't have to say nothing, right? But if you are, I encourage you to get the hell safely away from that relationship. And people, I talk about this all the time. You're more likely to be hurt by somebody you love, care about, or acquainted with than a stranger any day. Any day. All right. I mean, statistically, it's 5 times more likely that the person sleeping next to you is going to hurt you than a stranger, like, say, Dolly, right? Over here. Well, y'all feel like y'all know me, but, still stranger. That usually don't happen. It's usually somebody you're acquainted with, a friend, a family member, a lover, spouse. They're way more likely to hurt you than anybody. Okay. So phone lines are open tonight. Y'all are awful quiet. So that means I can go to bed if nobody's calling in. Y'all don't want to touch in on this topic tonight? Y'all ain't got nothing to say? Leave tonight. Welcome Dolly has a new mic. And Amanda, what did Amanda say? Does the mic sound funny? It's the mixer that makes it sound funny. I didn't see what Amanda said. Hey guys, I just joined. Does Dolly's audio get any better? How bad is it? Is it like tin can bad? Like terribly? Like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Audio is distorted. Okay, let me see if I can clear it up a little bit. Y'all bear with me. Dolly.
Hey, Dolly, this is Troy in Indiana.
Hello?
Yeah, Dolly, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Troy in Indiana.
What's up, Troy?
Hey, Dolly, I don't know if you like to think about hypotheticals or not, but can you let me have a hypothetical in this case?
Yeah, I can let you have a hypothetical.
Okay. If this man done what he done to that woman and drove her, instead of doing what she done, I'm going to use the YouTube words, instead of doing what she done to herself, if she went and unalived him, would she have a very good defense for
doing it?
Yeah.
No.
For
I mean,
well,
I don't think it's right to unalive anybody. So
not justifiable, but for reason of insanity. Did he drive her nuts? Did he drive her insane to cause her to do what she done? What if
now,
she would have done it the other way?
Well, now if she would have went and tracked him down and unalived him, I would say that's premeditated. She planned that. Now, if he showed up at the house and she did something to him, I would say that there's a case of self-defense there.
Well, I don't mean self-defense. I mean, he drove her to where everybody said she was having mental issues.
Yeah.
Would she have a insanity defense if she would have unalived him?
I guess that would depend on the circumstances of the unaliving. Like I said, if she went and tracked him down and did it, I would say no. But if he showed up and out of fear she did it, I would say yes. Because I mean, anytime you take anybody's life, you should be at the fear of losing your own life. That's the only reason it makes taking somebody else's life acceptable. That you were in fear of losing your life. That then I would say, okay, then that is justifiable homicide.
Yeah, I don't mean justifiable. I mean by reason of insanity.
I mean, you can try it. Many people don't get the insanity defense. I mean, a lot of people have pled insanity, but they're usually acquitted.
If my point is, if he drove her to unalive herself, that's driving her to insanity.
Yeah,
because
I
it's
agree with that.
insane. It's insane to unalive yourself.
Absolutely. Nobody in their right state of mind is going to do that.
So if she would have unalived him in the same circumstance, would it been insanity, or because he drove her to the insanity? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there could be a possible defense for that. It depends how they played it out
Yeah,
or how
yeah.
they
I'm talking
worded
about
it.
defense. Yeah, I'm talking about defense, legal defense. Yeah,
Yeah, if you say, I mean, this person made me crazy, and if they hadn't, if I wouldn't have done it, then I would guess yes, you can. That don't mean you're going to be acquitted. It just means yeah, you could definitely plead that insanity.
yeah,
You would have grounds to plead it that I was tortured and tortured until I couldn't take anymore, or I was abused and
right,
abused and I just wasn't going to take anymore, and I did this and that. I mean, it's
right,
women have used it before. Women have shot their husbands and said, "Well, he abused me so much that he came in this
sure,
night and I just couldn't take it, and I did what I had
right.
to do to make sure I wasn't beat on anymore."
Right, in her situation, her life wouldn't have been any better if she would have done that and he was dead, because then she would have been in prison for the rest of her life, or in an insane asylum for the rest of her life.
Yeah, but
That's what I'm saying. That's what he drove her to.
some people would rather be with Jesus than be in prison for the rest of their life too. So, um, I mean, I don't know. I just think he's a dirtbag. Any way we look at it, like he shouldn't be a
Oh
pastor
yeah.
or any of that. He's definitely not a man of God.
Oh, definitely not.
So,
Man of evil.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's an evil guy, and a lot of evil people hide behind the Bible, and that's what gives good people. People are so skeptical of Christian people. It's because there's so many bad people, but it's like anything. There's bad people in everything.
And the Bible even warns us about that will
Mhm.
happen.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And he ain't even the worst one. There's preachers out here way worse than him, and
Oh yeah.
and their day will come. Their day will come. But hey, I appreciate you calling in.
You too, Dolly. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You be good. Peace.
Peace.
I mean, I think he drove her insane. Right, and I think she had problems anyway. She had some mental health problems, but he didn't help them none, and he kept pushing and pushing until she couldn't take it anymore, and she left. To be such a religious woman, it is a sin to take your own life. Okay, so for such a God fearing woman, and I would say don't do that. I would know God wouldn't want you to do that. you know, God sometimes puts you through trials and tribulations to make you a stronger person, to get you to where you need to be so you have the strength to be the person that you need to be. So, and then she had such a terrible 911 operator that was had no compassion to her whatsoever. Now, I guess you don't got to have compassion to be a 911 operator, because if she would have called Dolly, I would have tried to talk her off that ledge. I'd have been like, "Listen, don't do that. What are you, crazy?" You know, people, that's why I tell people every night, hey, if nobody else loves you, Dolly does. Because nobody needs to feel unloved in this world. That's a horrible feeling. Everybody needs somebody, right? And that lady could have said so many. I don't. Would it have changed anything? Maybe not, but it may have. You just never know unless you don't try. You don't take somebody to tell me I'm about to get ready to take my life and be like, well, hold on, I got other things to do. You just don't do that. And it was so horrible to hear. Like, I don't run the dispatch office she works at, but I can tell you now, she wouldn't work under me. That would have been her last day as a dispatcher. Like, listen, you need to go be a 411 operator. Do they got that anymore? Can you call for? That's how old I am. You can call 411. I don't know. You need to go work somewhere else. What telemarketing? Okay. You could be one of those bitches that call and be like, look, we're calling about your extended car warranty when you don't got a car. Okay. You can be one of those chicks, or life alert, something. But as far as being a 911 operator, oh hell no. Okay. That is just horrible and terrible. And like, where's the compassion in this world for your fellow brother or sister? Like I don't even have to know you, right, to have at least that bit of compassion for just human life. Um, Seeing dressed up in a fancy robe and preaching in front of others make themselves long, big when it's really they are bad. Yeah, we know that. I think smart people, intelligent people will see evil. When you're a good person, it's easy to spot evil, right? I see it all the time, like just evil. Like when people we were talking about Nick Ryder, everybody's like, "Oh, he has mental health problems. Look at him; he looks so blanking out. That's evil." When you look at somebody, they radiate evil. Go with your gut instinct that they're evil. I think I think your instincts are one of the best abilities God gave us because they let us know when things ain't right, when people ain't who they say they are. Sometimes we can be wrong, but I would say your gut's right 90% of the time or more, 95% of the time. That instinct when when you get that feeling like something bad's going to happen and something bad happens, you should have listened to your gut feeling. Or you have an instinct that something's going to go down and then it goes down, and you're like, I knew something was going to happen, or I knew something bad was going to happen. Like, we're blessed with those abilities so we don't fall victim to monsters and people that appear to be something they ain't, and really they're just a snake waiting to bite you. And that's I'd rather deal with a person I know is a bad person than a person that is bad that appears to be good. And it goes back to Natural Born Killers, that movie, like I talked about the snake in the snake story. The guy said that, the woman pulled the snake out the fire and babied the snake back to health. And when the snake got healthy, it bit the lady. And the lady looked at the snake and said, "Snake, I helped you. Why did you bite me?" He said, "Bitch, I'm a snake." Okay? You know what you're dealing with when you deal with a snake. Okay? You know what you get. But when you don't know it's a snake, them are the worst type. Okay? Because you don't know to avoid these people because they appear to be something else. Yeah, so and that's one of the good things I took from that movie, Natural Born Killer. Hey, listen, you're dealing with a snake, you're gonna get bit. Okay, don't mess with snakes. I don't care if they're on fire, if they're burning in a pit. You don't reach in there and try to help them because eventually you're gonna get bit. So phone lines are quiet tonight. That means it's go watch Netflix time for me. All right. So listen. Thank you for all you guys that are out here. Justice for Mica Miller. I don't know if she'll ever get real justice. 7 years to me, that ain't justice. And like I said, he goes to court. I believe it's January. I wrote it down. Let's see. He goes to court in January. I know that. January 12th. So coming up here in 3 weeks, he will go to court. This is for his arraignment. So they will set a trial date. And I'm sure so we're looking January, February, March, April, May, sometime in May. So summer of 2026, we will see John Paul Miller in court and facing 7 years. With this indictment, I'm pretty sure he will get the 7 years. Right? I'm with the high profile and the family, and I'm sure it's going to be a big circus. The only thing about federal trials is there's no cameras. There's no video. That's the only bad thing. Can't take pictures. I mean, you can report on it after the case, right? But far as any video or audio of any of this being able to be seen, we won't get any of that. Not in federal court. I've learned that. Now, after the court, of course, there'll be people in there that take notes and come out and report from outside the courtroom. We will get what's going on, but we will not get it live on court TV. We will. So the hopes of seeing any of that is kind of out the window, right? It is what it is. But I would say 7 years is better than no years. And and of course, that's just the first time he's judged. For all our Christian people out here watching tonight, he will be judged again. And that's where the tough sentence is going to come in. He may get off light with 7 years here, but then again, he won't get off that lightly when he's judged by the man upstairs. No, he can get up to 7 years, 5 years, up to 5 years on the cyber stalking, and up to 2 years on lying to the authorities, and a $250,000 fine is the max. That's the max he can get. Okay, I've done my research on this. The max. South Carolina federal charges, and he only has to do 85% of that. So, like I said, it ain't real justice, but it's better than nothing. Prayers to Mica Miller's family. I know that Mike is with the man upstairs, and she's not being tortured. She's not being harassed. She's not being bullied by a fake man of the cloth. And a lot of times they say, hey, she's in a better place. I mean, I don't usually say that until I get there and know what place she's in, right? But hopefully she's in a better place. I know this. She's with better people. And guys, I'm getting ready to get out of here. Don't forget to check out the Dolly merch store, buyDollySoap.com. We got soaps, lotions, body washes, t-shirts, hats, all that good stuff. We didn't reach the goal on the giveaway tonight, which ain't a big deal. We do it daily. So when we do reach the goal, I'll give this hat away. And you guys be safe. I hope if I don't see you between now and Christmas, I got a lot of stuff going on, so I haven't been live as much as I usually am because it's Christmas time. I hope you have a Merry Christmas. I hope it's blessed. I hope you have a great New Year. Now, of course, most likely I will see some of you guys. I'm just saying for the people that may be busy with family and other things over the next few days, I hope you have a great Christmas. Merry Christmas to you and your family. I hope you have a great New Year. And remember, stay safe. There's a lot of drinking and driving that goes on around Christmas time. People like to sip a little eggnog and get behind the wheel of a car. So just be careful. I don't want to lose any of my brothers and sisters here in true crime, my true crime junkies. Okay. And of course, I'll see you guys tomorrow with a new story. I'm trying to bring a lot more different things in for 2026, cases that we usually don't cover. Like we don't do a lot of covering. We usually only cover missing kids. So I'm trying to bring in new things in the true crime sector for you guys. I hope y'all enjoy it. If you are enjoying this type of content, make sure you let me know in the comment box down below. All right. If you hate it, you're like, Dolly, I hate that shit. Let me know. All right. And see you guys tomorrow. Be good. Stay safe. Dolly loves you. Peace.